This construction worker didn't know that day he would save someone's life. Kevin was a construction worker on Interstate 95 in Henrico County, Virginia. His day started like any other. He arrived early at his job site and soon began to go about his usual chores. However, when a girl jumps out of a speeding car and runs to him for help, Kevin realizes this wouldn't be another routine workday. Kevin Huntington was 30 years old. He was a tall, stocky man. He was with one of his co-workers doing repair work on one of the busy stretches of highway. He got up early that day to arrive earlier than usual. The flow of vehicles is lower during the morning hours so they could work more comfortably. In addition, he hoped to have a clear afternoon to spend time with his family. Although he enjoyed his work, he wanted to take an early day off. Being a construction worker can be quite exhausting at times. They'd only been working for a few hours when the sound of tires sliding on the pavement distracted them. Both workers looked at the car that was speeding down the highway. It was passing cars, and with each dangerous maneuver, it was wearing out the tires, which were smoking as they were on the ground. Kevin wondered what could be going through the head of the man driving that car. Driving at such a speed posed a risk to him and to all other drivers on the road. He soon realized that something strange was going on. One of the vehicle's doors opened and a girl leaned out of it. The car didn't stop and continued across the highway at full speed. That's when the girl in the passenger seat jumped out of the SUV and rolled on the pavement several feet before coming to a stop. The highway worker couldn't believe what he'd just witnessed. The woman was on the ground, barely 30 meters away from him. Kevin didn't have time to react when the girl got up and desperately ran in their direction. That was when he got a better look at her. The girl couldn't have been more than 18 years old. She was running scared and desperate. She was bruised from the blows and had scrapes and damage all over. However, this didn't stop her and she continued to walk hurriedly to where he was standing. When Kevin finally snapped out of it, he dropped his tools and went to catch up with the young woman. She was shouting something, but the noise of the cars prevented him from hearing her. Several curious drivers had stopped at the strange episode, causing a traffic jam, and the shrill clapping noise of the cars that now made a huge queue on the highway. Kevin reached out to her and lifted her into his arms. She looked distraught and terrified. Tears were streaming down her cheeks and she kept asking him to please help her. He carried her to safety by the roadside, and when he finally got her to calm down a bit, he could hear from her mouth what was going on. This story sounded like something out of a movie. Kevin never thought anyone could face a similar situation in real life. Still hesitant, the girl began by telling them that the man in the vehicle wanted to kill her. He'd kidnapped her and was now taking her to an unknown location, so in desperation she decided to jump out of the car even though it was moving. Before doing anything, Kevin called 911. He was to alert them to the abduction and the injured girl. He was talking to the operator when suddenly the girl next to him grabs him hard by the forearm and turns pale and tense. The worker sees that she's watching something and soon realizes the kidnapper's car was approaching from the other lane. What would she do now? The driver of the vehicle could be armed. He was a dangerous man. However, Kevin never considered running away. On the contrary, he stood his ground even though he was genuinely frightened. I told her to stay behind me, that I wouldn't let anything happen to her, Kevin later recalled. The driver stopped the car and rolled down the window, looked carefully at Kevin and the girl, then picking up his cell phone, the man made a call. Kevin was unfazed. He was ready to protect the young woman and stood there giving the stranger a death stare. At that moment, the man got out of the vehicle and began to walk slowly to where they were standing. The man was still talking on the phone as he approached. Kevin was always assertive. His attitude was stronger than that of the offender. The man eventually got back in the car and fled the scene in a hurry. When he got far enough away, they both finally breathed a sigh of relief. The police arrived on the scene a few minutes later. The officers thanked Kevin for his bravery and for helping the girl. Otherwise, the young woman's end would have been different. Later, they were able to learn the identity of the kidnapper. The girl said that Berg was not a stranger. She and Berg were in a loving relationship. However, when the man discovered that she was dating other men, he became violent and went on a rampage against her. He'd beaten her and even tried to strangle her. He'd smashed her phone against the wall when she wanted to call 911. He ended up dragging her to his vehicle, taking her in an unknown direction. It was at this point that she decided to jump out of the car as they were crossing the highway. Eventually, a road worker had saved her by protecting her from her captor. Aaron Berg, 28 years old, was caught hours later by law enforcement on charges of strangulation, kidnapping, and assault. Berg is now awaiting trial and awaiting punishment. If Kevin Huntington, a construction worker, hadn't plucked the courage up, the young woman would not be alive today. Soon her story became nationally known and Kevin was recognized as a true hero for his bravery. As Kevin later said, "You never know whose life you can save." If you see someone in danger, even a simple phone call can be enough to help.